Buenos nachos, amigos, and welcome to Record Breakers, a music podcast where a group of friends gather together to share music with each other, an album at a time, take turns, do a little roundabout. It's like a little book club for music. It's fun times had by all. I'm Petey Rave. Here with me is my team, my squad, my crew, my cohorts, my quorum. We've got David.
Side effects may include lack of appetite and drowsiness.
Mm-hmm. And we've got Drew.
Hey, folks.
Yeah. And of course, once again, we have our guest fourth chair for this set of episodes. We've got none other than Matt Walton, aka Squiggles. What are you doing, Squigs?
I'm sitting here in a chair talking to y'all,
Yes.
drinking the finest that actually Mexico, but everybody in Texas claims it as their own, has to offer, Topo Chico.
Yeah.
I heard it's excellent with lime and or bitters.
Nice.
That's the Squigs guarantee. Dink.
Of course, we're here to talk about music over some nice beverages. And of course, we're talking about an album. The provider of the album this week is none other than David. David, what do you got for us this week?
I decided to bring along an artist that I have been a fan of for quite some time. And that is R&B artist by the name of Anthony Hamilton. He's a very talented man, and he's my favorite R&B artist of the last decade, 15 years or so. And we're bringing his 2016 album, What I'm Feelin, to the Record Breakers podcast. Let's talk about Anthony Hamilton.
Yes, sir. Let's talk about some expectations. Drew, what were your expectations coming into this album?
Anthony Hamilton, as far as like the name of this artist, is something I was aware of. I have heard him before as a featured on many an album, but I never really dug into him as an artist, right? So it's a name I've heard around, and I knew he was a good singer. But besides hearing him on different records and stuff like that, I never really like sat down and listened to like, hey, what is the music you're coming up with? So I was really excited for that.
Mm-hmm. Matt, what were your expectations coming into this album?
I don't know if I had ever even heard of Anthony Hamilton before this. Napster, yes, Napster still exists, formerly known as Rhapsody, as in real Rhapsody, as in real player Rhapsody. It calls it his neo soul, and judging by the album cover, he seems like a cool guy, and I'd probably enjoy hanging out with him.
Yes, you probably hang out, enjoy jamming with him.
Probably so.
Yeah. I kind of like, I wasn't sure at first, but once I saw the album cover, kind of like, okay, got the feeling. I knew I was going to get into something a little soulful, something a little bit, a little bit smooth. I figure something like that. But I didn't know exactly. I definitely wasn't as familiar with the name Anthony Hamilton. I did enjoy the fact that I looked him up, and he's connected with Nappy Roots.
Nappy Roots gonna be okay.
Yes, sir. Which is
fantastic. One of the features.
Yes. Which is fantastic. But let's talk about this album musically. Deej, how would you describe this album musically? What would be the themes and elements that you would bring up?
One of my favorite things about Anthony Hamilton and his brand as an artist is that he shies away from what you see a lot of in R&B and pop music in general, in that he is, as I like to say, a grown-ass adult in his music. He's grown. This is grown folks' music. He is a mature man who has lived life and done some stuff. Some he's not too proud of, which you'll hear on this album. but he has lived his life. He does not live in the world of pop and R&B from all over the world that perpetually wants to live in the era where you're always 22 years old or a little bit younger and everything is relationship drama and I'm depressed and falling apart. He's a guy that I relate to now more than ever. And this album in particular shows him at a place in his life that was very, very interesting. And I was really looking forward to seeing how he would take to making music after everything that had happened. From his last album before this, The Point of It All, to this one, a lot happened. Yes. And I was interested in seeing how he would take it.
Yeah. Drew, how would you describe this album musically?
The first thing that hit me about this album is this dude has some pipes. His voice just was, there was something about it. Every ounce of soul from this was just so well done by him. Like, that's the thing I think that gets lost a lot in modern like R&B and soul music, is that soul should be about yourself, right? And like Deej said, like there's this point where a lot of it becomes trapped in like this young man's game, right? You're kind of like 21, 22, you're going out and doing this, or you're getting left behind by that, and like this thing. And this comes from a dude that knows where he's at and has stuff to say about where he's at and wants to express himself in that. And you can feel it, I think, in just his voice. Beyond that, beyond the emotion of it, right? The soul of it, right? Like the vocal control itself, the tonality of it, like the technical aspect of it was also astonishing. Like he's got that 1-2 punches. Sometimes the singers I like that have that emotion to their voice and you can feel what they're feeling, there's a rawness to it, there's an edge to it that like isn't as musically pleasing in a classical sense. I don't think that he suffers from that. I think that like his control in this, his tone in this is just astounding. The musicality throughout the entire record, on top of that, was just great. There's some great piano parts. Like that groove, that funk groove bass comes through from time to time. PD alluded to it. There's some baby making music on this. It just, hey guys, it's a soul record and it's an R&B record. I don't know if you know this,
guys,
but you could, some of these songs you could put some candles on and impress a lady with this music. Fuck. And I think, yeah.
PD, crude.
Well, here's the thing: you could bone the Prince, right? Like, but this is some foreplay music. This is you're bringing her in, and you're
making her a drink. You're making her a drink. You're sitting down on the couch.
There's boning music and there's making love music. And I think this Anthony Hamilton falls more in the Luther Vandross, Barry White side of the making love music. Tell me I'm wrong.
You don't know how right you are.
And it's something that like you might end a night with some Prince, but you start it with this, right? And I think that's great. Like, and there's just a lot of that shines through this entire record. Like Dee said, there are dudes that make music, and then there are like grown ass men that are like, nah, I got some shit to say about the world and myself, and I'm gonna say that shit on some music. Yes. And I'm gonna make you feel it, and I commend the man.
Yes, sir. Matt, how would you describe this album musically? What would be the themes elements that come out for you?
Man, now all I'm thinking about is who's gonna bring the Clarence Carter album with Strokin' on it.
Good Lord.
That's
Uh,
that's the soundtrack to a dry hand job.
No, no, we're done.
I'd like to talk to Petey about that one. You can tweet him at King Kaz on Twitter. KINGKAZ.
Definitely a lot of soul. Some great, bluesy guitar and other instruments in here. But there was also a kind of a poppy. I don't know if poppy is even really the right word, but a little bit of a poppy influence here. Where like I noticed, is this a really, really consistent drummer, or are these loops? I suspect these are loops.
It's a mix of both. It's a mix
yeah.
of both. He does have a band, but there are some drum loops too.
Yeah. I was really disappointed. As a side note, I was kind of disappointed that it was really hard to find the credits info on who played on this album. So I wagged my finger at you, whoever you is.
Yeah. I think the dynamic this album musically, it just does a lot of really cool things. It is soulful. It is smooth. There is a grown ass emotion into it, like you said. And I think overall it works fantastically. Especially kind of as you go into specific songs and how well they work. Let's talk about some of the key tracks. Deej, what would be some of the key tracks that you would say are emblematic of this album?
For me, the first song that stands out to me as an Anthony Hamilton fan is the song Grateful, because you get to hear him do a falsetto on the hook, which is kind of rare because of his vocal range being what it is. Him doing a falsetto is rare, but cool. Also, Walk in My Shoes, which is the center track of the album. You'll hear a lot of these love songs and songs about what you hear in R&B and soul music. But in this song in particular, you get to hear what actually happened. The divorce, the arrest, everything that Anthony went through in his life and has come out of. And that is the center track of the album. Also, the song Amen. I feel like if you don't feel something in the chorus of that song, I don't know what to tell you. Maybe we just can't have a conversation, because that song is probably the best example of what you might call hearing church in R&B. Because there was a little bit of church all over this album, but that one in particular has some church in it. Mm-hmm. And also the song Still. It has a piano lead that I really, really appreciate. It was simple but effective.
Yeah. Drew, what would be some of the key tracks for you?
For me, Save Me, like, it starts with a grooving guitar, a lot of really good layered vocals. I think it was just a really, really brilliant way to open. It was some groove to it, but you could still like hear that vocal that sends a chill down your spine, just how good it is. What I'm feeling is just a song that to me feels very rooted in like a very Motown aesthetic. And anytime you can get me to think about the Four Tops, you're an okay dude in my book. And then Still, Deej said it. It's a simple piano and a simple vocal, and the runs are great, and the way they like play off of each other is great. And sometimes a classic just track like that works for a reason. And it puts out on Front Street, I think, some of the stuff that's best on this album, which is Hamilton singing about some stuff.
Yeah. Matt, what would be some of the key tracks for you?
The first track, Save Me. As soon as it started, I kind of thought, man, it really reminded me of kind of late Parliament George Clinton stuff. And I was really excited to hear the rest of the album in that vein. I was just a tiny bit disappointed when it didn't do that, but it quickly relieved my fears by being still awesome. Such as track 2, Ain't No Shame. Just a nice, easygoing, bluesy song with really just nice, tasty fills. And Take You Home. I gotta say it. I'm a sucker for Oregon. And this is a nice gospel song about courtship. Not dating, not banging, courtship.
Yeah.
Mama's got to pass the mama test.
There is some church all over this album.
Oh, yeah. It's got to pass the mama test.
Yes. Mama got to approve of your words. Yeah, and I think that one is fantastic. I also want to give love to Walk in My Shoes. Don't remember if DJ touched on it, but that one I think has just a song about, if you're gonna walk in my shoes, like the dynamic of just the what he's talking, like the tone and the subject matter is really cool, and he attacks it in a really cool way. And I think it's just emblematic of like the soul and like the personality of this album. I think in a really cool way. I think just a way that I think works really well. But let's bring it back around the horn. Talk about some conclusive thoughts. Drew, what would be your conclusion on this album as a whole?
My conclusion is, if you have an ounce of soul in your body, this is something that you should listen to. It's something that is... There are some albums we can come on here and we can break down the musicianship and this, that, and the other thing. And you can do that in here for sure. That's not what this album is. This is an album where you can sit down, you can hear what this guy is thinking, you can see where this guy is at, and at the same time have a great time. I think it's just a really, really good record from front to back. And something that now hearing this guy, I'm really glad I did. It's one of those things where it's like, no, I'm going to go back and like figure out more of this dude, because what he's got here on this album is astounding.
Mm-hmm. Matt, what would be your conclusion on this album as a whole?
This was just a really enjoyable album. There is a certain type of album for me, it's the best way I can put it, where I enjoy it on, first few listens, and then I won't think about it for about 6 months, maybe a year, and then I'll listen to it again. I'm like, this is freaking awesome. And I think this is going to be one of those albums where there were some parts that didn't quite drive home this time around that I was listening to it, but I think give it a little time. I'll probably have to buy it just so it stays in my iTunes library, make sure I don't forget about it. And then a year I'll be like, oh shit. Yeah.
Yeah. This album is a really fantastic, really cool record. It's really soulful and really like you can really just kind of let it wash over you in a really cool way. It's good. It's rhythm and blues in a way that doesn't necessarily mean singy hip hop. like Modern R&B really just means hip hop where they sing as opposed to hip hop where they rap. Where this harkens back to kind of the idea of soulful rhythm and blues, in a very different way. Now, don't get me wrong, I enjoy some hip hop where people sing. I enjoy that R&B. That's fun. It's good times. It's just a different type of music, and this is I think a nice sojourn into more of that core version of rhythm and blues that I think does executes it in a really fantastic.
It's more along the lines of Al Green and Bill Withers than most other things.
Exactly. You can give me some Usher and some Neo, and I'll be happy. But this is a nice return to form of something more, like you said, Al Green, Bill Withers, those classic sounds, which is really fantastic. But yeah, Deej, how would you conclude on this album as a whole?
I would say that if you're interested in Anthony Hamilton after listening to this album, you can listen to 2008's The Point of It All, or his debut album from 2003, Coming From Where I'm From, which has a few of his hit songs. I think that this album is pretty good, but those are the two that I'd also recommend. It shows Anthony Hamilton's willingness to evolve with the times. He kind of has this brand of being very, very old school and very, very country in what he does. But he has points all over this album and throughout his whole career where he's not afraid to introduce some trap beats and do some modern things. But he never totally deviates from who he is and what he's known for, and that is doing organic R&B from a grown-ass adult.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it works well, and I'm glad to have experienced it. Definitely look forward to more from Anthony Hamilton. It's just a really fantastic record. That concludes our thoughts on Anthony Hamilton's What I'm Feelin'. Now we get to the main event of the evening. We get to our haiku reviews, the moment you've all been waiting for. Slap the ring apron. Just get all hyped. I'm not gonna do the Gavin loudspeaker thing just because it's late and people are probably sleeping. We get to our haiku reviews. Let's get down to it. Do it to it. Scrootin' bootin'. Drew, what is your haiku?
A great chilling voice. Tons of soulful emotion. Loving all of it.
Yeah. Matt, what is your haiku?
I'm feeling good with this album keeping me calm in traffic and work.
Yeah. I've got my haiku. A new classic sound. True soulful rhythm and blues. Let's make some babies. Yeah. And of course, last but not least.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Deej, what is your haiku?
Genuine, flawed soul with a tiny touch of church. Let it in the door.
Let it in your door. By going ahead and checking out on our Spotify playlist, play Record Breakers the home game. You can find it. I always say you can go find it. If you're looking for the link, it's in the show notes on the page at recordbreakerspodcast.com. Go down there. You'll find the link to not just the Spotify playlist, but the music we use in the intro, both on YouTube and on the webpage. See the show notes for all that. On that Spotify playlist will also be next week's record, as long as I remember to put it up. And that will be provided by Drew. Drew, what have you for us next week?
Well, it's a guy that I felt like we should probably get around to eventually. From Fairfield, Connecticut. May have heard of him. Some people know him. John Clayton Mayer with the debut studio album Room for Squares.
Mm-hmm. So look forward to that. Yeah. Look forward to that record next week. But that is next week, and this is this week. And you can, of course, find us all over the internet. David is at Call Me DJM. Drew is at XDruciferX. Matt is at MRiddickW. I'm at PD Rave. The show is at 4 Record Breakers. That's the number 4 Record Breakers. RecordBreakersPodcast.com. RecordBreakersPodcast@gmail.com. Rebelli.net for this and other shows. Rebelli TV on YouTube and possibly other places. Find us where you find podcasts. Like, share, subscribe. Hit the bell. Do all the things. Engage.
Look for my name.
Yes. Until next time. Hasta los huevos.
Toodaloo.
Oodle toot.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.